The devilish twins committed the greatest crime against their mother simply because she used to advise them a lot and wanted them to succeed in life. But these twins couldn't bear it at all. Stay tuned until the end of this video. It all started from a women's prison in the state of Georgia, USA. One of the inmates imprisoned for drug possession and armed robbery gave birth to a girl in April 1975. She named her Jermica White, later known as Nikki. Well, a child couldn't grow up in prison, so right after birth, they handed her over to her grandmother Della to raise her. The first few years were good. They had a close relationship and everything seemed fine. The only problem was Della didn't set any boundaries for this child. Nikki had the freedom to go wherever she wanted, whenever she wanted, which led her into the wrong crowd during her teenage years. She ended up partying, using drugs, and unintentionally got pregnant by a married man at the age of 17. The father found out but didn't take responsibility and abandoned her. On November 27, 1993, her children were born. And even Nikki didn't know she was pregnant with twins. She named them Jazmia and Tazemia, but they were called Jazz and Taz. Nikki was only 18 and she couldn't raise the children herself. She had no money or home, so he decided to leave the children with her grandmother Della and pursue her own life. Although she lived with them, she was often away on trips and parties, which made the children see Della more as their mother. Nikki somewhat acted like a big sister to them, although she wasn't around them much. She tried to provide them with everything they wanted: the best clothes, music, and painting classes. The children were extremely intelligent and always got top grades in school. In 2007, when the children were 13, Nikki met a 55-year-old truck driver named Robert and decided to live with him and the children. They enrolled in high school and fell in with a crowd that turned them from studious and kind kids into rebellious teenagers. They started skipping school, using drugs, and befriending older boys, mimicking everything Nikki had done in her teenage years that led to their birth. Nikki realized what they were doing and tried to impose rules and restrictions on them, telling them they couldn't stay out for more than an hour, couldn't use drugs, and couldn't befriend older boys. But the children couldn't accept these rules because they had seen Nikki doing all these things herself. Their home became a daily battlefield with the children sitting against Nikki. They insulted her, physically attacked her, and Robert, mostly absent due to work, left them alone together. Once, when Nikki couldn't bear their abuse, she escaped from them, locked herself in a room, and called the police. A female officer arrived, listened to their stories, but Jazmia and Tazemia twisted everything, accusing their mother of abusing them. They were really good actors. They all received warnings and were kicked out of the house. But Nikki parked her car nearby and kept an eye on the house. A few minutes later, Nikki screamed and ran out of the house. They had attacked her again. The police returned, arrested both of them, and 3 days later, they were charged with assault. In court, Jazmia and Tazemia lied again. The judge ruled that the children had to return to live with the grandmother Della, exactly what Jazmia and Tazemia wanted, because there were no rules or restrictions there. Della was 79 years old, and they were taking advantage of her, stealing her money. Nikki went to court and requested that the judge give Jazz and Taz back to her, live with her again. The court accepted Nikki's request and ordered them to return to Nikki. Jazz and Taz got really angry, and when they heard the verdict, as soon as they left the court, they threatened Nikki. On January 13th, 2010, just 4 days after returning home, Jazz and Taz didn't want to go to school. They got into a fight with Nikki. Jazz grabbed a vase and hit Nikki on the head from behind. While blood was pouring from her head, they got into a struggle. Taz took advantage of the opportunity, went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and stabbed Nikki in the arm. Nikki, who was used to being beaten up, was shocked by the knife attack. She quickly fled from the house, screaming, and ran to the neighbor's house, banging on the door. Unfortunately, no one opened the door for her. The children apologized to her, convinced her to return home, and tricked her. As soon as she put her foot inside, they locked the door behind her and attacked her again. One of them held her down while the other stabbed her repeatedly. They stabbed her 80 times all over her body until she died. They threw her body in the bathtub. They started cleaning the house, but they saw so much blood that they couldn't clean it up. Instead, they left footprints everywhere. Then they put on their school uniforms, went to school, and returned home. They waited behind the curtains for the police cars. When they saw one coming, they screamed and ran out of the house. Stopping the car, they said, "Please help us. Someone attacked our mother." The police entered the house and reported the murder. They saw that someone had been stabbed 80 times. It was clear they held a grudge against her. During the investigation and integration, Jazz and Taz stuck together. They said they believed Robert was behind it, but he was out of town at the time of the murder, so it couldn't have been him. The police found some of their actions suspicious, like they always wore gloves during interrogation, and when they asked to take them off, they made excuses. Finally, they were forced to take them off, and the detectives noticed scars on their hands, indicating they had recently been in a fight. One of them got into a fight and had gas on his hands. When asked why he was doing this, their sister replied that it was a nervous tick. One of the detectives grabbed his hand and saw too many gas marks. One of them were his own doing, but one was too deep to be self-inflicted. During interrogation, they refused to talk about anything other than bad things, and after interrogation, they want to watch a crime movie. The main suspect in the case, according to the police, were their daughters. Delia returned home happily and continued her normal life. They went to school, went to parties, and enjoyed themselves. They didn't even bother pretending to be upset. Imagine how happy they were at Nikki's funeral, laughing, except for Jazz and Taz, who said to everyone except Nikki's uncle, "I know what trouble my sister brought upon herself. I promise I'll take revenge on you one day." 4 months passed until the police found solid evidence, and finally Jazz and Taz were arrested. In 2014, they were sentenced to 30 years in prison separately. Jazz is studying in prison and in an interview said she hopes to have a normal life when she is released. But we don't know about Taz because she doesn't want to talk to the media. The case was closed.
If you're into crime stories and documentaries, subscribe to our channel because we'll be posting loads of videos every day.